In the quaint, unassuming town of Millhaven, two peculiar phenomena danced in the air: the jubilant laughter of the annual Pumpkin Festival and the hushed whispers of the ghost that haunted Glendale Crossing. Each 5-year cycle culminated on a rain-slicked night, precisely between 11:37 p.m. and 11:52 p.m., when an otherworldly semi-truck would materialize on the old state route, its blaring horn echoing like a warning bell, lights blinding the unsuspecting, only to vanish just before impact. No lives were ever lost, yet the ghostly reenactment left an indelible mark on the town's lore. Local legend told of Jack Perdue, a trucker who met a tragic end in 1975 after a reckless drive claimed his life. He became a guardian spirit, or so the townsfolk believed. Teenagers, full of bravado, dared each other to park at the haunted crossing on that fateful night. Most saw nothing but the lonely road, but a few claimed to glimpse the blinding light and hear the mournful horn that heralded the spectral truck. Enter Lena Cruz, a determined documentary filmmaker specializing in debunking contemporary myths, who saw the ghost as a perfect canvas for her next film, not to validate its existence, but to peel back the layers of collective psychology enveloping it. Arriving in Millhaven a week prior, she brought along her sound technician, Ben, and her eager intern, Chloe. Their mission was to envelop the crossing with technology: thermal cameras, LiDAR, electromagnetic field detectors, and high-sensitivity audio equipment. They would interview the locals, capture the anticipation, and ultimately reveal the explainable nothingness of the phantom truck. The townspeople were a colorful mix of skepticism and warmth. Old Man Henderson, the gas station proprietor, stood as their primary source. He had been the first at the scene of the accident in '75, and as Lena approached him, his weathered face creased with an unsettling mixture of memory and foreboding. "Wasn't no guardian angel," he grumbled, his hands stained with grease. Jack Perdue was a mean drunk who drove a rig full of God knows what. The crash, it wasn't normal. The cab was crushed like a beer can, but the trailer, it was just gone. Not ripped open, gone. And Jack, well, they never found enough to fill a shoebox. Lena noted this gruesome tale, attributing it to small-town embellishment. Ben, however, grew intrigued by the mystery of the missing trailer. What was he hauling? He wondered aloud. Henderson's eyes glazed over as he recalled manifest said industrial cleaning supplies, but the EPA folk who showed up later, they had faces like stone. Dug up half the field next to the tracks, took the dirt away in sealed trucks, said it was a containment procedure. Leaning in closer, he lowered his voice. "You ask me, that truck wasn't haunted. It was infected with something it was carrying." Lena dismissed this as paranoia, focusing instead on the phenomenon, the essence of the ghostly truck, not a decades-old cover-up. They set up their equipment on the 16th, the crossing appearing lonely and melancholic. Weeds sprouted through cracked asphalt while rusted railroad arms stood frozen like skeletal hands raised in surrender. The atmosphere was thick and still, as if time itself had paused. On the night before the fateful date, Chloe played back their baseline recording. "You guys hear that?" she asked, her voice laced with curiosity. Beneath the whispering grass, a faint, rhythmic noise echoed. Thump, scrape, thump, scrape, slow and labored. An animal, Ben suggested, shrugging it off. Maybe a wounded deer. But the sound pulsed through every microphone, omnipresent yet elusive, ceasing just as they attempted to locate its source. As the 17th dawned, the clear autumn sky morphed into a localized fog that clung to the crossing and the adjacent fields. A sudden chill wrapped around them, dropping temperatures 10 degrees. Their equipment malfunctioned. Camera batteries drained in an instant. LiDAR projections morphed into swirling, nonsensical clouds. And EMF meters spiked and went dead. As 11:30 p.m. approached, a crowd gathered, a mix of locals and brave spectators, all drawn to the eerie spectacle. Lena, Ben, and Chloe stood in their fortified observation post, their van creating a sanctuary against the growing dread. The fog enveloped them, thick as an unspoken dread, their electrifying lights barely piercing the darkness. 11:37 p.m. came and went, leaving only silence in its wake. As the clock ticked to 11:41 p.m., an unearthly chill seeped through layers of clothing. The world fell into an oppressive quiet, the normal sounds of night fading into obscurity. Then it appeared, a light, not the bright headlights of a truck, but a sickly, greenish-yellow glow illuminating the fog from within, twisting it into a solid, swirling form. The sound followed. Not the horn they expected, but the thump scraped from their recording, now deafening and metallic, echoing with haunting familiarity. A shape materialized from the green fog, a grotesque parody of a semi-truck, its cab contorted as if in agony, a screaming mouth in the dark. Where the trailer should have been, a pulsating mass of darkness writhed, absorbing the very light around it, revealing shapes that twisted and shifted, metallic and bone-like remnants. "It's not a ghost," Ben gasped, his voice trembling. "It's a wound." The entity lurched toward the tracks, dragging itself forward with a grotesque rhythm. The green light flickered, and in that heart-stopping moment, Lena grasped the horrifying truth. It wasn't carrying cargo. It was the cargo. The crash had ruptured something beyond comprehension, spilling a malignant essence into their world, and the death of Jack Perdue had merged with the horror of its contents, replaying the catastrophe endlessly. The phantom wasn't a mere memory. It was a psychic scar, a leak in reality, forever replaying a moment of agony. As the entity reached the tracks, it halted. The pulsating darkness swelled ominously, and for a fleeting second, the green glow extinguished, plunging them into terrifying blackness. Then came the horn, a sound beyond the realm of machines, a scream of desolation and pain, vibrating through their very souls. Chloe screamed, blood trickling from her nose as she clamped her hands over her ears. Ben retched, and Lena felt an overwhelming wave of despair wash over her, the despair of a thing trapped in a moment of horror it could never escape. In the echo of that ghastly horn, the silence shattered. Phantom sounds erupted from the past. The screech of metal tearing, the hiss of ruptured tanks, Jack Perdue's last confused radio call, and beneath it all, a low chemical sizzle, and faint insect-like chittering emanating from the dark mass. The wound was revealing its horrifying contents. Then, just as abruptly, it ended. The green light faded, the sound ceased, leading behind the normal night symphony. Startlingly loud as the fog began to lift, revealing a sky clear once more. The crowd, initially silent, erupted into nervous chatter, oblivious to the true horror they had witnessed. Lena, Ben, and Chloe stood in stunned silence, packing their lifeless equipment with trembling hands. Their footage, reviewed later, was a cacophony of digital noise and glitches, save for one clear, haunting clip of the horn scream. Lena chose to destroy it. She never completed her documentary. Instead, she penned a brief article for a niche paranormal journal, conforming to the Guardian ghost theory. The truth was too harrowing to unleash upon the world. Some truths, she realized, were better swallowed. But as October 17th approached each year, unease settled in Lena's chest. A faint chemical smell would drift on the breeze, or a truck's brakes would sound just a touch too sharp, sending chills coursing through her veins. She had witnessed the truth at Glendale Crossing, understanding that the haunting was not a revisit of the past, but a means of containment. The echo of the crash served as a pressure valve, allowing a tainted piece of reality to bleed off the building tension. Millhaven wasn't hosting a ghost. It lived atop a buried scream, and deep within her, she felt the certainty that one day the valve might fail. The wound might not merely echo, it could fully open, unleashing the chittering, corrosive rawness trapped inside, transforming a moment of death into something alive and terrifying.